Hey friends, welcome back. This is the homebrew side of Backdraft Barbecue, and I'm delighted that you're with me today so that we can talk about what the other half of my hobby is. I like to often say brew-bacue because it's like a mixture of homebrewing and barbecue. So I want to just go take you around the brewery and show you what we have going. And maybe it will inspire some ideas for you on how to set up your own home brewery. Mine works pretty good. It is a little tight, and I'm working on expanding that. But right now, it works pretty good. My first piece of equipment that I have purchased that really inspired me to go further with my equipment purchases is a Brewtech, an SS Brewtech conical fermenter. Now they make two versions of this. I happen to buy the Unitank. And the reason why I bought the Unitank is because it does a tremendous amount of things in a very small footprint. This is a conical fermenter, but because of the way it's constructed, just like the ones they use in big breweries, it's a one-piece shell, if you will, neoprene jacket, and you can pressurize it. So that allows for fermentation under pressure, FIP. Fermentation under pressure just is amazing when it comes to cold crashing and some other things, which I'll take detail to explain later in a different video. But I've really been happy with the performance of this unit and the different varieties of beer I've been able to use in it. It really comes loaded right from Brewtech with a whole bunch of features. Pressure gauge, there's an internal cooling coil. I have set up with a quick connection fitting that I run through actually a physical therapist medical grade cooler that seems to work really well. There's blow off cane. I added a spunding valve to it. The spunding valve allows you to do the fermentation under pressure. It's basically like a variable pressure airlock. So that's kind of cool. That works pretty well. Also comes with a temperature gauge built in, sampling port, racking port, and also the lower port, which allows you to dump trub if you're trying to reuse your yeast or you want to clarify your beer before you're done. So this is number one. I like to point this out anytime anybody comes and visits my brewery. With a good Unitank, your home brewing just goes to another level, and it also saves a ton of time and work because you're fermenting everything all in one place, and then you can keg directly from this without even seeing oxygen. Let's go down the line. I'll show you a few more things. The next thing I invested in my brewery purchases was a Keg King 3-roller crusher, and this thing is amazing. It cuts up the grain really efficiently, and that is a key part in all grain brewing. If you're not crushing your grains properly, you're not going to get good sugar extraction. So this was a really good purchase. It wasn't that much money. I bought it on sale from my buddies at More Beer. And I got to tell you, I love it. It saves so much time and money instead of wasting product and time. I have a 3-tier setup, and I use old converted kegs. I know how to weld. I have a stainless capable welder, so it's not a big deal to me. Basically what I did was I cut up some kegs from a brewery that went out of business, and I welded in tri-clamp ferrule fittings so that I could put in dump valves. I also put in temperature probe port, thermal well, if you will. And in each one of these, I'm utilizing electric elements. So this is a completely electric brewery. That's why I'm able to have it in my house without worry of fire hazard, which is important to me, as well as carbon monoxide. I did put a hood system in, a hood vent in, that is fairly large and robust. This was one of the most expensive pieces of this entire setup. But this allows me to pull that vapor out. You don't want that in your house when you're brewing. You're just going to have mold and other issues if you have an actual house with tight enclosure. If you're in your garage, it's no big deal because you can just open the garage door and you can vent. But inside your house, you got to be careful about all that moisture. I also incorporated quick connect fittings on all of my valves and also my 2 pumps. The reason why I did that is just because it's fast and easy. It's easy to clean. Relatively low cost, and it's, again, similar to like an air chuck fitting. Finally, let me show you the crown jewel of my setup, my pump panel. So what I did was I ran a separate 100 amp service to a spa disconnect, which you use for hot tubs and such. This gives me GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupter protection. When you're dealing with electricity, metal vessels, and people, we obviously don't want to have a grounding issue where we get shocked and hurt or killed. I run my GFCI 100 amp service down to the PC Brewmatic 1.0. This is my first take on building my own brew panel. I am using solid state relays with these PID system temperature control systems. These are made by Inkbird. I use the ITC 106s. Very, very easy to get a hold of on Amazon. And what these run is basically a controller. They pulse for the SSDs. And man, the setup works great. You basically set your target temperature that you want to mash in at, and it will fire the electric element that's installed in these kegs sequentially as needed. Now I wanted 100 amps because I want to be able to run both elements at the same time, just in case I'm working on something and I need that extra kick to get me going. I can also have the ability to run 2 batches at the same time if I wanted to. But for this setup right now, 1 batch at a time is just fine for me. These are controlled by thermocouplers. The thermocouplers go down into the thermal wells on my kegs. When the temperature is needed or the thermocoupler is calling for temperature, it tells the SSD or the PID rather to fire. Light lights up and tells me it's going, and I'm off to the races. I also have another switch set in for my pump controllers. This just powers a power strip that I have running for both of my chugger pumps. This just gives me a quick on and off just in case I need to. And of course, for safety, I have an emergency stop in place that cuts power to the SSDs. That way, in case there's something bad going on, I can easily cut the power off to the heating elements. So again, this is about what I have for my home brew setup. You know, the conversion from propane Cajun crab pot cooker deal from in the garage to the electric kegs, it was a little bit costly. However, I feel that the investment was worth it because I can brew all year round in the comfort of my house. Electric versus propane definitely has its advantages as well. I feel that I can get a faster boil with these heating elements than I could with a propane, and I'm less likely to scorch. Whereas a propane burner, you're heating up the bottom and anything that's sitting there is just gonna cook. These heating elements sit a couple inches above the bottom and they're less likely to cook off any or caramelize any of the stuff that's sitting on the bottom. All in all, I'm very, very happy with it, and I hope you tune in for me when I run a batch here. We'll go over the basics of all grain brewing. We'll go over the basics of using a conical fermenter, fermenting under pressure. I've got a whole bunch of ideas for videos coming up here, so please stay tuned. If you don't mind, please hit the subscribe button. Give me a comment on any questions you have about the brewery, or if there is a review of a product you would like me to do, I'd be more than happy to host it. And as always, likes help my videos out tremendously. Thank you very much, and be safe out there.